It's the last day of group stage play here at the HGC Finals 2017. We've just put our first team out of Group D into the BlizzCon quarterfinals. That is Ballistics, second seed out of Korea, taking the necessary steps needed to repeat their crown as BlizzCon champs. Can they do it? We'll have to tune in next week for that. But right now, we still have a few more matches here in Group D. Up next, our elimination match. Soul Torturers from Taiwan versus Team Expert in Europe. One of these two teams has got to go home. It's going to happen right now. Let's head on over to the desk and get our experts' thoughts.
That's right, Kevin. We're almost at the conclusion here as we continue down the line with two more series to go. And of course, Expert will be going up against Soul Torturers in a second. I'm joined at the desk here by Trixler, Wolf, and Jhow. And Trixler, what we saw from Ballistics, they were pretty darn good.
Yeah, they're pretty good. I don't think anyone here expected them to be, so strong at all, but, they're kind of dominating, and it's kind of a shock to see, so no big deal.
I mean, for me...
He could have just left it at, I mean, but go on.
Yeah, Wolf. I bet you don't feel the same at all.
Yeah.
I was worried that Expert was going to give them a challenge.
Sure.
I thought they were going to get the group in first, but I think that they really played well to Expert's style, and Expert didn't play well to their style, so they had a rough time there, but it's good to see return to dominance for at least two of the three Korean teams. Tempest struggling a lot yesterday. But yeah, this one itself should be a good one.
Let's take a look at the bracket, see what's going on so far, as well as what's to come, as we do have Ballistics in that top spot. 2-0, 2-0, 2-0. All of those fixtures up at the top. So it's been a fast day so far. We're going to turn our attention to the bottom, lower part of this bracket now, as Soul Torturers goes up against Team Expert, and the winner of that gets the opportunity against SPT. So Jhow, looking at how Soul Torturers were able to do in their first series, I was pleasantly surprised at the level they were able to bring out in their first series.
It was, in the sense that they did not back down from a team fight against a team that was able to take a few team fights to Ballistics in our last series. So I think Soul Torturers has a chance. It seems like I've studied a lot of Team Expert, and they focus a little bit more on the macro. They do things a little bit differently than most teams. They kind of just do what is normal with a little bit of a twist and make you kind of adapt. But it's nothing that's overwhelming. Same for their team fighting. It's nothing that's overwhelming, even within their region against players that they know. They've never been the dominant team fighting source. They normally try and get a pick here and there. So I really wonder if Soul Torturers might be able to bring the fight to Team Expert in the series.
I'm wondering if what Soul Torture is going to do to Expert's very defensive playstyle. Whenever they're faced with these teams that are very aggressive, they play very passively, Yeah. We saw that in their series against Ballistics. I don't think that Soul Torture understands how to play like Ballistics did, where they just kind of slowly push and choke out Expert. I think they might be too aggressive, and very defensive style from Expert might counter that.
I don't see... Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. We can focus on Soul Torturers, actually, as we do get into this first game between these two teams. So, Tim, what can you tell me about them? How have they looked to you?
Well, Soul Torturers, again, they did surprise us in game number 1, but I also think that was a matchup that they understood and they have spoke towards. They know what they're going to do against SPT.
Yeah.
We mentioned that we saw Team Expert play more defensive earlier against Ballistics, and while it's true, I don't think they're a defensive team at heart. They have the aggression set up, and they are willing to push the envelope when need be. They did draft a composition that should be a little bit more defensive on Tuma Spider Queen, but with Soul Torturers here, I want them to take the fight to Team Expert because I want to know if they can challenge them mechanically. I think that's the best place to actually try and break down Expert, is to put the burden of defending and winning a team fight on them.
Yeah, I think almost every team here, apart from maybe SPT, probably going into this group slightly overlooks the idea of Soul Torturers being a threat, but I think Expert now has to say, actually, Soul Torturers is a potential threat.
Yeah, I mean, everyone was saying yesterday's group was the group of death. I really feel that today's group was a group of death in terms of high-level skill, right? I mean, we had Tempest underperform yesterday, that's true, but today I think a super perfect team, obviously doing very well. Soul Torturers, a team and a region, Taiwan, of course, that's always gotten out of group stage, or not always, but very often more than the other minor regions. So I like this situation here for Soul Torturers. I don't think it's going to be an easy run. I think ETC is going to be a very prioritized hero here when you have Scroll, of course, and Bad Benny to look at.
Well, let's take a look at their opponents. It is Team Expert coming from Europe as the 3rd seed, but let's see what they're going to be able to do. Jhow.
Yeah, Wolf brought up Bad Benny, and he's kind of been a primary focus of mine. Same for Nick on that backside. But after watching earlier, it seemed like ADRD felt a little bit uncomfortable on the heroes that he was on. And we've seen Medivh band out against him no matter what battleground. And fitting into this double support meta, him playing some of these supports, it just hasn't quite looked as crisp as he had on other heroes. So I really wonder when it comes to the hero pool, when it comes to the drafting, if they might have a few tricks up their sleeve. Maybe Medivh gets let through and they early prioritize just for the sake of comfort. It's a big question mark for me coming into the series.
Yeah, that's the thing, is ADRD did look really weird in the Ballistics matchup. The Uther, okay, I can kind of understand. He's played it a couple times during the HGC phase, and while he's been more Q-build Uther and in your face, he can usually play it pretty decently. What I was more worried about is when I saw his Tassadar. His Tassadar and Ariel is almost second to none in the HGC. He's very powerful in those heroes, and he was out of position, not landing the important dimensional shifts, and of course not providing the shield where need be. So I'm wondering if ADRD just had a bit of a bad run, or if he's feeling some nerves today.
What battlegrounds would these guys rather prefer to play? Where do you think they would rather go if you had to think about their past?
Tomb maybe for exporters, a larger battleground. Actually really like the way that they play BOE. They do it a little bit different around the Immortals. They generally tend to push the opposite depending on the shielding and things like that. And it tends to catch people off guard, and next thing you know, they're up like 2 levels. And they're like, wait a minute, how did we get here? They tend to sneak stuff like that in, but I think maybe larger battlegrounds will suit their playstyle a little better against a team like Soul Torturers.
Yeah, I think Soul Torturers would also like to play on Tomb, just given their playstyle, their aggressive nature. Sky Temple's always been a good map for this team, and as well as Please buff Arthas and previous iterations of this team. So I think those are the 2 maps to focus on for Soul Torturers.
For me, when you're looking at Team Expert, I think Tummo, Spider Queen, obviously as mentioned by the other ones, Dragon Gyre is one that they actually go to more so than other European teams. And then last but not least, Infernal Shrines. That's an EU special.
Yeah, it definitely is. Let's check out how things have been going in the HGC universe for the Cheers. Of course, almost approaching that 27 million, getting nicely on, and you can continue to contribute. Those cheers, it's going up, boys. You can continue to contribute over in Twitch chat as well towards our Deadly Chaos Lizard. Notice I said ours there. All right, so the big question is, as we've theorized where the battleground might lead us to between these 2 teams. We're about to find out. Personally, I would like to see something like an Infernal Shrines myself, but we'll find out right now to see between these 2 teams where we're going, and it will be Infernal Shrines.
Nice.
I didn't cheat, I promise.
But picked by Soul Torturers, actually, so a little bit unusual here. I feel like these 2 teams really like similar types of maps to be aggressive, so that's very exciting, because obviously when you put 2 teams on a map that they like and they're very good at, you get a close match.
That you do, and also kind of lends itself to its own solo laners that like to double soak. These teams seem to really enjoy grouping up as 3 to 4 and then having that off laner kind of control the lanes, which I'm very interested in watching. Thuro is top 3, I would say, in Europe in terms of top laners. You're discussing him when you're talking about the Wubbies, when you're talking about the Zelias to a degree. So Infernal Shrines, that'll be a nice little struggle to see who in that side lane will be able to get an advantage.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, this is the best of 3. One of these teams is going home. One of them will not have the opportunity to try and go on to BlizzCon.
Do you guys think Soul Torturers will follow the trend of the Korean teams banning out Medivh against North America and EU?
Yes.
I think that, you know, it's interesting because you don't necessarily have to ban out the Medivh, but you give opportunities to Expert if you don't. But because they're so tunnel vision on banning this Medivh, I feel like it gives Expert extra cards to use because it gives them the next best thing, because Medivh is not a first pick hero most of the time. So I'm curious if Soul Torturers is going to follow suit with what we saw from Ballistics earlier.
But that opens up the door. A more comfortable hero, if you're playing that double support role, is the Tassadar. And I wonder if Expert might just first pick it here and then pick a hero around that later. I wouldn't be surprised if they do. Again, maybe they've got some tricks up their sleeve. They've been known to run Abathur on this battleground before. They've got a wide variety of things they can play. The Muradin obviously might be a little bit higher priority here, especially because Bad Benny's played so much ETC. But with the rework to Muradin, the changes to Johanna, we might see some stuff, and they do indeed go into the early Muradin pick.
I actually accidentally wrote on my paper, instead of ETC, I wrote scroll in the ban slot. It's definitely a target ban. And you know, Bad Benny is one of the key parts of this team, so I like this controlling the tank pool of Skrull, which is very small. And you take the ETC away, you grab the Muradin here, you give Bad Benny one of his better heroes.
Yeah.
And I think this is a very safe draft from Expert. They're approaching this very carefully.
He's not lying. I just watched him rub it out. So there you go.
The fact checker up here, Hilarious, got her back.
That's right.
So we're gonna see what tank we're gonna be getting later on here for Soul Torturers, but for now we have the Tassadar and we have the Sonya, who has made her way up into the top 3 picks of a majority of drafts. Just devastating one on this battleground, but in general, Sonya, not a bad pickup at all, especially if you just want to peel her off and just do the shrine by yourself while you try to deal with whatever might be coming your way in terms of a push on the opposite side of the map.
Yeah, Sonya, one of the best solo Shriners in the game, and has been historically very popular on this map. And now that she's in the meta, the gain is twofold, where she is able to push that top lane really hard. Oh, Trickster, you cast Expert in HGC EU a lot. What's a go-to solo laner against the Sonya here for Team Expert you think they want to go to?
You know, it's funny, actually, in EU, the Sonya was actually started, the train was started by Arturo. He was one consistently picking it up. We had the lead constantly coming out there from Team Expert. It was quite a joy to watch, and then Sonya became a bit of a mainstay. We actually haven't had too many issues to where we actually see a thorough answer back against the Sonya. Some heroes that he's great on, Tihaka, of course, Leoric as well is one that we saw a lot.
Don't you think a lot of this, though, the Tassadar and Sonya, is all targeting someone like Athero? Because if you take away the Sonya, he's not playing it. If you take away the Tassadar, he's less likely to play Tracer.
I'm going to have to say no on that one, because I think that they might easily fall back to a Leo here. We kind of saw the iteration of Muradin Leoric for another team just recently, and with the Abathur hat and the changes there, I think that it's kind of like a safe fallback option. One thing that does, it has insane shrine control for clear to win those punishers. It's really funny, if you watched Expert play Abathur, it's ATRD will set up mine traps like you would like if you're playing quick match, right? But he would do it and the team would kind of rotate around. I think the Leoric hover is definitely a target now, because this is something that they've run in the past before, but I like the Abathur into Tassadar, who can reveal those. They might not get as much value, but this feels very Team Expert-like to me. But with the Leo ban here, I think is a great ban for Soul Torturers.
I think we've seen Leo really exclusively with Abathur in this tournament, so it's a good adaptation here of studying these teams, watching the evolution of this group stage. So yeah, removing that now, so questions still remain about the potential solo lane. Abathur obviously can pseudo solo lane, but it's a very weak matchup against Sonya. You're going to have a lot of problems, so do you think they're going to look to pick up a melee here at some point?
Oh, easily. This Abathur is all just going to be here just to empower either the Muradin or the solo carry they're going to pick up, whether that be the Vala or the Greymane later. And again, to go to Jayhaw's point, drop mines and constant bushes. It only has to work once. It only has to work once.
I feel like we're in a weird spot where Athero might end up on something not as common, because it's very, as much as, you know, and Dahaka is something else that he would go to from here, they have an Abathur already. I mean, it's a bit weird.
Yeah, you can't really go to like a Malthael with the Abathur. It doesn't really make sense, so...
Kick it old school Illidan style. It's been a while, and it's something Expert, if you look back, you guys remember early, I think it was early this year, or maybe it was BlizzCon last year, we saw basically a split soak Illidan who just continued to push lanes on Infernal Shrines, and then Expert's like, hey, what if we did that? And there was a time earlier this year, I think it was during Phase 1, that they did the exact same strategy on Infernal Shrines. So again, I don't think this is anything out of the ordinary, and it's nothing that Expert isn't prepared for. And right now, I think that they still have exactly what they want, but again, that melee hero will be a big factor here.
But there's a potential for even more wacky things down. We'll see what they want to go down, but we all know how Expert can be sometimes.
Yeah.
They do. I mean, there's always the Butcher they've shown 3 times in the past. I mean, rain only comes out from a thorough. I think we'll go down the Malthea route a little bit more. There's that Arthas being popped out.
Okay.
No Butcher now.
No Butcher for sure.
But the Arthas is also a denial pick. We don't see a lot of Arthas from Athero, but it's also another hero that generally plays that secondary bruiser style role on Infernal Shrines that contributes to the clear, that has the survivability, that does really well. So again, the melee here is going to be particularly interesting. I feel like we might see a Nick Vala come out here. That way you've got that sustained damage around these team fights. So what's it going to be for Athero?
I really like the Illidan Greymane idea that you were going back to. It doesn't suit this team's play style, and that's not really what they like to do, but I think it would be a smart draft for them.
But woof, Illidan into Sonya Arthas is very difficult.
Yeah.
Like, I look at this and I think Malthael and Greymane, but you can see
Thorough looks
look at
not
his face.
happy.
What's my
All
hero
of
here?
this- Yeah.
He knows he's gonna have to pick a defensive hero because he usually loves the aggressive heroes that can win that lane. And he's like, who do I gotta play here?
What if they
just
just
to
go?
survive?"
Let's see Ana Malthael. Let's go. I think it's going to be really tough to make the Malthael work. They're going to go a different route
There we go.
here. So this is an awkward draft for Expert. I don't really like it.
It scares me now.
I mean, guys, Double Genji has got a lot of power behind it,
does.
technically.
It's a variation of what we saw at the MSB. You have the Rhaegar here instead of the Karazim.
Yeah.
It's more, remember that was more dive heavy, finding a hero and then everyone just jumping onto one from across the map, right? The Tyrael comes in, the Genji comes in. Rhaegar can sort of do it, especially with the aid of Muradin, so it's more hyper aggressive.
They're setting themselves up where it's like, again, against Ballistics, they had a small window by which they needed to do damage, and once that window is gone, then the other team wins out.
I think Vala is a perfect pick here at the end of the day for Soul Torturers. You have Rain of Vengeance to try to shut down Genji's mobility there with CC. You have Detainment, you have Arthas, an Ancient Spear. Like, if you pick up the Vala, you have so much CC to lock down the Genji. When that goes wrong, Team Expert goes wrong with it. Again, they don't have a traditional solo laner. I'm not saying this draft cannot work for them, but with the tools that Soul Torturers have, if they hit their CCs correctly, I think they're going to have a great time, and there's the Vala. So I like the way that Soul Torturers is approaching this, and I think everything in this draft for Expert goes back to the frown we saw on a Thorough Angel's face. He just did not get what he wanted here.
The thing that stands out to me the most, especially on this battleground, it'll be easy to bait the Punisher over, but who's taking that Punisher down is the big thing, is that Genji doesn't have a lot of anti-siege damage. Tyrael, everything there. These are things that I see that tend to happen when you go with an all-in composition. It's everything or bust at that point. And I feel like if we see Soul Torturers get the first few Punishers and get that value, get that 1 to 2 level lead, try and get around level 10, get around a level up 11, 12, and just kind of play the talent tier advantage from there on out. They have insane clear on the Shrine, especially compared to their counterpart. So I think that if they can take advantage of those early Punishers, then that's going to be their opportunity to just kind of take control of this game.
Is there argument to say that if they do lose a Punisher, they bait the jump, and then they just go past it and fight the other team?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I think that's how they're going to have to win it, is avoid those CCs and fight hard with the Dragon Blades, double Genji. They have a lot of damage. They certainly can make this work.
That is definitely the intention here of Expert, to force the fights, and they did well with it back at the MSB, or I'm sorry, at the Western Clash. The only issue with it was closing out the game. Can they do it here?
It's a good question, very good question. Continue to vote, of course, over on Twitter with the hashtags for either of these teams as we continue on with the hashtag HGC as well as @Heroes Esports. Before we get in, guys, quick thoughts. Who do you think is going to be taking this first game? We can do some predictions.
I really feel that if Soul Torturers plays this composition the way that it's intended to be played, then they have a very advantageous position to say that they have a high probability to win this. Draft-wise, I like what Soul Torturers is doing here.
Yeah, draft-wise, I like Soul Torturers as well. I think we need to see those CCs connect. We saw Scroll with some weak ETC play in their previous series, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt here, even though maybe Expert is technically considered the better team. I think the draft is good enough to where they take this first game.
Blind faith here for me. You know, Expert let me down against Ballistics, but I don't think they'll let me down here. I think they're going to win it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, guys. I think our commentators are ready to go here into this elimination match in Group D, so take it away, guys.
Thank you, Caleris. Gillyweed and Dreadnought here to bring you the first of 2 matches to find the final team going to the top 8 of the HGC finals. And going to BlizzCon Dreadnought, what do you think of the drafts?
I really actually love the draft adjustments, specifically on the side of Soul Torturers. I feel like they had a lot of really clever plays to try and limit the hero pool of Aetherial and make him not necessarily uncomfortable, but not the best hero and the highest impact hero here for him and the rest of Expert.
Yeah, taking away Sonya earlier on, that is a great pick for Soul Torturers anyway. I feel like that is Zace's best hero. If he's on point, he's going to be hitting every single one of those Ancient Spears. We know how much damage Poison Spear can do with that.
And I feel like they have a, kind of a really old school composition, but it's one that works out so great in the long run. The Tassadar, the Arthas, Sonya,
Yes.
it's a trio that we have seen almost since the beginning of competitive Heroes of the Storm. And it on a map like Inferno Shrines, I really am looking to see what Soul Torture can do here against Expert.
Well, let's get into it. The final team of Europe, seeing if they can make it through the single team from Taiwan, an elimination match for the ages. Winner of this will go on to face the single remaining team from China, SPT. We're headed into Infernal Shrines for game 1 of this best of 3.
Starting off, representing Taiwan in the blue is going to be Soul Torturers. We have Zay on the Sonya. We have Mir on the Ario Scroll on the Arthas. Next up, we have Tassadar, played by Cucumber. And last is Goddog on the Vola.
And looking to join the other two European teams in the top 8, it's Team Expert with Kurson playing Rhaegar, Bad Benny playing Murden, Aethero Angel playing Tyrael, ADRD doing some push-ups on Abathur, getting pumped, and Nick playing Genji.
It's always nice to see ADRD on the Abathur. That has been a hero since he started getting into the competitive scene that I feel like he kind of made his name on. And every time he's on it, I feel like he has kind of an impact that he brings to this game that very few Abathur players are able to. But already we see Soul Torturers looking to get that pressure into the early game. It's common against Abathur compositions. You always struggle in levels 1 through 9, and Soul Torturers should be looking for every front wall that they can get.
Yeah, we talked about Soul Torturers and the control they had in draft over Aethero Angel with the Sonya pickup and then the Leoric ban, even the Arthas take, but we also should mention that the Medivh ban, very calculated, and then taking Tassadar there. Generally, ADRD wants to play this kind of secondary, quote-unquote, support that is more of this enabling hero for his Aethero Angel and Nick, playing something like an Abathur, Tassadar, Medivh. That's what we most often see from him, although we have seen a little bit more trend toward the second support for him, too.
Right now we see Soul Torturers kind of following Expert with the rotations through the map, and it's not that big of a setback, but it's not what you want to be looking to do with this style of composition that Expert does have. You want to be wave clearing, you want the Expert to be tracking you down, chasing you down, because the pressure you can have onto those front walls with the trio of this, specifically the Vola, the Ariel, and then really Tassadar is optimal, but anybody else in that typically can get that damage out. And I'm just surprised that Expert seems to be in the driver's seat here, and that Soul Torturers doesn't seem to make the moves to pull them away from it.
Yeah, Expert's making some moves, forces out a dimensional shift, but that's such an interesting point that you bring up, Dread, and one that I want to expand on. It felt like both of the first matches for these teams, both of the teams were kind of in that responsive type of play, with Expert playing versus Ballistics and then Soul Torturers versus SPT. Soul Torturers, it was almost like they were waiting to see if SPT would make some mistakes that they could capitalize on, and Soul Torturers, that works for them in their region, and they traditionally don't push advantages very hard, just waiting for their opponents to make mistakes, but I feel like they may not be able to do that here versus Expert, although as I say that, Bad Benny takes a lot of damage from ST to kick things off. Still no first blood yet.
We see Expert not giving any interest towards that shrine on the top half of the map for now. ADRD posturing into the middle of the lane. He's going to be trying to get that pressure on bottom. Nice job here, this rotation to be able to catch out Scroll. Stormbolt does end up landing Detainment Strike there, but it's not enough first blood for Expert.
Taking advantage of the mobility or lack thereof of Arthas and trying to go back and forth between the lanes. Team Expert recognizes that Soul Torturers have a shrining composition with heroes like Tassadar and Sonya. And with Sonya moving very quickly up to the top, there was an opportunity for them to catch people rotating between the lanes, maybe even heading up there. Soul Torturers does have a lead in the Skeletal Defenders. We'll see how much Expert wants to commit to the shrine and how much they're more focused on just trying to get these early kills, delaying and denying the rotations. They found Goddog too, they'll get a second kill.
Very well done, and that is going to allow Expert to make the transfer up towards top, maybe get pressure onto Zaze as you see him skirmishing with that Tyrael onto the top lane. This is a very risky position for the members of Soul Torturers, and this is very clever from Expert with this Abathur composition, knowing that they can't compete onto the shrine and just looking for picks elsewhere.
Yeah, and it almost forced a panic response from Soul Torturers because they know that they at least need to get this shrine to try to get back in the game after being a level behind to an Abathur composition in the early game. Abathur feeling even free enough to be able to body soak in the bottom lane as he's pushing that in, but Expert kept members in lane, every single lane the whole time, so that they could, even if they lose some structures here, some towers, they still will be caught up and in a good place to go into the mid game.
And because this early game hasn't panned out maybe the way Soul Torturers wanted, they need to find a way to make these punishers really matter. The late game is going to be a huge problem. The macro pressure that Expert is going to apply is real, but we see them aggressing even farther. Stormbolt lands at the Goddog and he's just deleted.
Yeah, Goddog had no chance there, and that was our fear when we were talking about whether Greymane or Vala would be a better pick here, trying to keep Goddog alive. They do have Kala's Embrace for the increased lifesteal, but that requires you to be able to stay alive long enough that you can get the lifesteal off of that. And Crystal Aegis, even at 10, there's going to be things for people to abuse that, like a Swift Strike in from Genji, and then the double stun with Heavy Impact and Stormbolt of Murden.
And to kind of loop that back in, the survivability here of the Vala and the responsive playstyle that we've seen out of Soul Soul Torturers. They've never really had Cucumber and Vala sitting together. The Tassadar Vala pairing that we know, and maybe the argument to take the Vala over the Greymane, you go, well, Tassadar, he's going to be the tool to keep them alive through that. But because they have been following Expert around the map, they've never really gotten to have that hyper carry double support Vala the way we have began to know and love here over the past HGC Phase 2 Part 2.
Yeah, it's been more of keeping Ariel along there with Vala, but you're just relying on the heal from that, and then once you get to 10, yeah, you have Crystal Aegis. So Soul Torturers continuing to fall behind slightly to the members of Team Expert as they make Cucumber dimensional shift to safety yet again. And when all is said and done, that lead for Team Expert, Soul Torturers are trying to close it out as fast as they can to make sure that they don't give a lot of time for Team Expert to have 10, but they haven't really felt comfortable aggressing anywhere past their half of the map.
And it's very important because Expert and Soul Torturers neither have drafted a global, but mainly because the weak early game and the powerful Shaman cap that exists on a map like Infernal Shrines, timing the camps and making sure the camps are splitting pressure is very important for Soul Torturers, because Expert, again, though it's not a normal global, Abathur will give you that side soak if you fail to apply that pressure and really set Expert too far ahead in experience for Soul Torturers to be able to recover.
Soul Torturers want to stick together as best they can, and they do get their Shaman. They're able to keep Expert from getting over and stealing those. And that will be very nice for this Shrine phase, because that'll be pushing up in the top of the Shrines all the way in the bottom, but Expert makes the faster rotation to that Shrine. So now Soul Torturers still do want to get on the Shrine, but without 10, it feels like maybe they should just try to push somewhere else and just get heroic abilities and defend versus that Punisher.
I completely agree, and it looks like Soul Torturers have come to the same conclusion as us here. God Dog and friends are going to try and apply this pressure towards top. Nice juke there with the Thero Angel. He's going to buy time. It's the rest of Expert looking to get the flank. Nick goes in, finds himself a reset.
They'll get that. They get 10 to Nick, hit by the Detainment Strike, but ready to go in with the Dragon Blade. He uses Deflect, takes down one, slicing, dicing, hacking through the members of Soul Torturers as another falls. 4 kills for nothing.
Clean play coming out from Expert. Meanwhile, the Rhaegar taking all the skeletal defenders. This is going to be a second Punisher for Expert as they now round 7-0 in kills. This is dominance coming out from EU.
From EU with an Abathur composition early in the game. Punisher baited over to the defense of the fort, but Expert are going to get here quickly so that they can maximize every single aspect of this game. They get the kills, they take down towers, the Punisher gets pulled in, Benny's ready to go, he's got the Abathur hat, he's feeling good.
That's one of the scariest heroes, especially warriors that have that Abathur hat on, other than maybe Arthas, which obviously Soul Torturers picked up for themselves. So now we've got to be looking at the later stages of this game. It hasn't panned out in the early game. The Abathur coming online to the later stages. At what point, how does Soul Torturers find a way to hit the brakes onto Expert in the game plan that they've executed, Gilly?
That is a solid question. They've just been behind in experience this whole time. So obviously making sure that they are in the lanes, getting some pressure, and then getting some picks. They have a composition that has the ability to do that. They have an Arthas, the Sonya too, and it always seems like they're the ones being aggressed on. Even in this instance, the rotations are just far faster from Expert, but they can stick together, get a fair fight around a Shrine, which it may be the next Shrine is their best bet to do that.
Yeah, it does seem like picks are going to be the tool that Soul Torturers has to rely on. Tassadar maybe can get a couple of, extra vision with that Oracle to make sure they keep Expert locked down into the improper areas, and this is brilliant decision making from Soul Torturers on that same line of thought. They're trying to get the invade and make sure they can force a fight before the 13 talents here arrives for Expert.
Yeah, they want to see if Expert will take the bait and get in here for this enclosed place, a place where Arthas just would wreak havoc, where Sonya would be able to do so much with her whirlwinds. But Expert don't bite. They are okay with flipping the switch to macro mode until they get the level advantage that gives them a talent tier advantage, and at that point, they'll be ready to bite back.
Yeah, this is going to be during the Shrine phase. It's going to spawn over the next 30 seconds, so this is unlikely for Soul Torturers to be able to achieve this 13 talent tier window. Then immediately you go, well, they have to play that around possibly, like we saw over the first Shrine phase. Then you go for a split push pressure, you look for that. And it doesn't feel like they're making that happen, because every time Expert is catching them off guard like this, Cucumber gets the dimensional shift, but it seems too little too late.
Well, Mur came back in with the Crystal Aegis, and a pop of Archon showed that maybe Soul Torturers wanted to keep that fight going. but Bad Benny and the rest of Expert will disengage, and that's a long cooldown that Soul Torturers doesn't have, but what it does do is force Expert down, and that gets Soul Torturers on the point, and they're just about to get 13 very soon.
It's only 8 skeleton defenders, but those were very important that Soul Torturers picked that up while the members of Expert were distracted. They now need to round out that 13 talents here, which you can see them getting the experience up on top. How many skeleton defenders are we going to see Expert get, though, until they end up getting those talents?
No Aegis, no Archon, and no Wrath of the Berserker. Soul Torturers will give up another Shrine to Expert just to have 13, maybe try to take the fight beyond the Punisher. I am fearing for the members. They are going to run back in. If they're going to make a fight happen, it has to be right now.
And they need to, and they don't have the Sonya. Bad Benny gets the Dwarf Toss immediately. Nick drops the Sanctification, and Soul Torturers lose their Ariel.
Oh, that was just about the most fruitful Swift Strike. And then you see the wind-up of Nick. You're like, no, this is not going to be good. And it's going to get worse for Soul Torturers as Bad Benny dives back on in. The clone goes down. Soul Torturers nearly lose their warrior. Rough spot here as the jump was before the gate.
Oh, they get the turn immediately onto Nick. Bad Benny and friends biting off a little bit too much, dropping the Avatar and Ancestral Healing. Punisher leap off cooldown just now, but nobody looking to get the follow-up quite yet, as that was a really good response from Soul Torturers.
Yeah, I thought it would be bad because the leap didn't put it over the gate, so they couldn't be as safe attacking it, but because Expert were so desperate to go in along with it, it was going to make the fort attack them too, and the turnaround, the lockdown. Still there, you gotta respect an Arthas.
You gotta respect the Arthas and the play that we see out of Expert here. Soul Torturers does show signs of life, but by no means does that get them back to even footing. Still struggling with the experience. The 16 is going to be here. But there is a nice moment for Soul Torturers that I do think they can rely on 16 over the next Punisher, as long as they don't get a couple of picks. Very, very scary. The rotations that we see out of Expert, they are not letting the members of Soul Torturers get any experience for free. Meanwhile, we see Avatar conveniently just constantly having those side lanes, and it's why Expert's been able to pull ahead, other than obviously the dominant team fight.
Yeah, and Expert playing with those aggressive rotations is what is enabling ADRD to feel so comfortable body soaking with his Avatar, but it also is showing us a different Expert than we saw versus Ballistics. They are willing to be way more aggressive. Cucumber even is going to be made to use his Archon just so he can dimensional shift and stay alive from this constant diving under forts, not even caring where they go. As long as Expert can find a member of Soul Torturers, they're willing to get the fight going.
I feel like that's a brilliant point that you brought up, though, about talking about the aggression in the transitions that that four-man provides. If they are not as aggressive on that side of Expert that they have been with this positioning, Bad Benny constantly getting the flanks, Nyx always making every squishy second guess their posturing up, ADRD wouldn't be able to go out and be the, the slug he was born to be. And luckily, the members of Expert, they just truly enable that here, and it's now going to be a massive problem. It has been a problem through all moments of this game. But again, Soul Torturers will get that 16 talent tier. They'll have that even footing fight. It just feels like with how dominant Expert's been, I don't even know if that is going to be a turning point for ST.
Yeah, it's hard. 16 was a really big power spike for Expert, especially the control of fights between Dwarf Launch. Bad Benny's already been pretty scary with where he's dwarf tossing on top of members of ST. It doesn't get any less scary now that Dwarf Launch is online, but also Holy Ground. They have so much control between those two level 16 talents. ST push out pretty far, wanting to get 16 off of this fort. So close to using that control with the Holy Grounds, with the heavy impact to split apart ST, but it doesn't happen. ST are just about to 16, and that's where things really start to come online for them too. Will of Heaven or Wrath of Heaven for an Ariel. You've got Remorseless Winter with a Root for Arthas, and then of course Nerves of Steel. Sonya gets a lot tankier.
ADRD made his body teleport there down to bottom to help that camp out. 18 skeleton defenders have been picked up in this window without Soul Torturers getting the 16 talent here. They now have it, but after losing a member, again, Cucumber getting caught out throughout mid, it just feels like another Punisher, but look at Bad Benny setting up the play.
Yeah, the Sanctification is perfect as God Dog comes out of the Aegis. He just can't live, even throwing down the Rain of Vengeance, and ST are getting picked apart one by one just as they get 16. Rough going for our Taiwanese team.
The Punisher is going to be following up the damage that Expert is going to present to this bottom keep wall. And if Soul Torturers, when everyone survives, this is going to be a keep almost 100%, but if they lose any members beyond that, I would not doubt Expert on just marching towards the core and ending this game quickly.
So nice to see Expert show the lethality that they have been working on, not only throughout all of Part 2, when they started out versus Dignitas, didn't really show that, but then a lot of times being caught up or even ahead of Fnatic in their series until they lost a late game team fight, closing out the game. That's something that Trick talked about. A double jump, Punisher and Murden on Scroll.
They're going to get the damage onto Scroll, but all members of Soul Torturers are alive. Expert, you can see they're fishing around. They want to get it. They go in for the door toss stun, but Goddog, he's going to be fine on that fallout. Now the Punisher is leaping away from the core, and the shielding is still full here. I'm surprised the members of Expert are not committing to a kill nor the core. Now Soul Torturers, they're going to punish.
Yeah, they do punish. They pull the Punisher away and then go after the members of Expert when they move to the core. And that is going to be needed to be cleaned up eventually, but the most important thing here is that Soul Torturers hold, and a lot of that was the fact that Expert were not 20 at that point, but they'll make a fast rotation, a pit stop, if you will, to take out the mid fort, and that's going to get them closer to those Storm Talons.
Yeah, you know, the waffling around there for a second really doesn't cost Expert anything here. The 20 talents here, and the 3-level lead is so far away for the members of Soul Torturers that they honestly should be trying to take and force this fight. It's the only lane where a fort is down on the side of Expert, so they desperately need to take the skirmish.
I'm going to try for that before Expert can get 20, but the disengage has been good for Expert. Now remember, not only is there a keep down for Soul Torturers, but there is an Abathur in play for Expert. That means that that will most certainly always be pushed, that bottom lane. And the minute that Expert take out a few members of Soul Torturers will be the end of this game.
Yeah, if you think that catapults are annoying, you know, post 20 when you're playing on your own and you don't have a global or a wave clear, Abathur with any catapults at all stages of the game is equally as annoying. And luckily for Soul Torturers, they do have the wave clear. It's just the Vala is mainly their main damage source. You don't want her to be the one back there and helping out. There are really no major, you know, standout tools here to be able to deal with the oppressive playstyle that ADRD is going to unfold. Yep. Nice holy ground there for a Thero. See if it gains him something.
Zace goes back in, hitting that crucial spear. Nick will swift strike away, saying that he is one versus all the members of Soul Torturers. And it is a composition that wants to stay together, which is why those holy grounds can be so impactful versus Soul Torturers and can force out early things like a Crystal Aegis. But the longer Expert keeps Soul Torturers toward the top, the better the mid and especially the bottom will do.
I adore the body language Expert's displaying right here. Constantly trying to get Soul Torturers into this area of a chokehold. They've never once moved up towards that fort, though it's easy for them to take it out. Just waiting for a Thero to get a holy ground play. The invade attempt's going to be real. Detainment strike goes on to Bad Benny. Scroll not going to drop a Howling Blast, and just pushing off Expert as we have our next Shrine phase.
This is a tough one, Dread. This is maybe for the game, as the shielding for Soul Torturers core just by Expert keeping Soul Torturers at the top side of the map for so long goes down. Just a free 7%, 10% on the core before someone has to go back. That someone is Tassadar.
Or Thero. Oh yeah, wow, Bad
Aegis.
Benny already getting the Aegis there.
Saint.
It's keeping Goddog alive for a moment. Nick tried to get the hack and slash double reset. Ancestral goes down, but at this point here, the members of Expert are going to blow this team fight right open.
Yeah, the Dragon Blade is just too much to deal with. Crystal Aegis, we have seen it struggle a lot in these team fight compositions because of how telegraphed it is and how it's used on a low health target. And with this kind of dive, you just can't keep someone alive after the fact. Team Expert takeout for 16 kills to 1, and they'll march on to the core of Soul Torturers to take game 1.
That was very impressive play executed between Bad Benny and Nick. The synergy from minute 1 to 18 there at the final kill. Every single time Bad Benny went out, he was just drawing so much aggro from Soul Torturers and enabling that Sluggathur there, making ADRD a huge problem. Impressive play from Expert and sticking to the playstyle, you know, that I feel like they grew with originally in the European scene.
Yeah, it's really nice to see Expert after a difficult loss versus Ballistics coming back now, bringing in more aggression, understanding the costly issues for them in that series versus the powerhouse team from Korea, and now being able to get that victory. Now it's time for Soul Torturers to realize what they need to do, what kind of changes they need to make in the draft so that they can try to win game 2 and take us to the third and final game. Let's check in with the analysts for game 1.
Thank you very much, guys. Yep, that's right. As the Genji Abathur, we haven't really gotten to see it that much, not at all during this tournament yet, but not since for a while in other league play, etc. But it showed why it's still very, very powerful, Jayhound.
Yeah, at what point do you say, all right, this was better than this, that was better than this, and we wondered what would the melee be. We ended up seeing Tyrael picked up on the back end, and we actually have a replay to show just how valuable that Tyrael was. And if we just, can watch how this plays out, it's going to be really interesting because you see Tyrael, obviously with the holy ground there, kind of zoning everybody out. And the primary target, we pause it here, God Dog's in all kinds of trouble. And we'll see this as we roll it forward, that he's the primary target. It was completely zoned. The Crystal he just comes out. And if we pause here, you can see on the left side, the Sanctification comes down right as it pops, because that's going to do a lot of damage. But the timing on everything was so precise on everything that Expert was doing that it just felt like Soul Torturers had no answer. And when we roll it forward at this point, you're diving under there. The Rain of Vengeance is doing nothing. At this point, this is just Expert doing whatever they want, and it was all due to the timing, the play of Tyrael being able to use the holy ground there post 16, ended up choking out the Peel-style heroes. Sonya and everybody had to take a long walk to try and save that, and at that point it's too late. So you really got to credit basically the entire team. But the Tyrael, which we weren't sure what would be that melee pick, I think was a phenomenal pick at the back end of that draft.
Yeah, it's funny because we were worried about the Thera Angel, worried,
Yeah.
and then the Tyrael comes through, and OG Tyrael, BlizzCon 2015. Here you go. Shouldn't have doubted him for a second. And you've got this guy who's just so fantastic at timing out these sanctifications. But this coordination with this draft, even though, on the desk, it looked like, okay, they kind of just flexed into this as it wasn't their plan, it looked like it was so well practiced, very well played.
I think a line you said in that replay that really stands out to me is God Dogs in all sorts of trouble. You could literally name that match that Expert versus Soul Torturers. God Dogs in so much trouble. It kept looking like every time in the beginning of the game that he just never realized how explosive this composition can be.
Yeah.
It can really just